Everyone always asks me, how much does it cost to live in Spain? And this is a really good question. And because that question keeps coming up, I actually did a whole video about the cost of living in Spain. I even broke down my own cost of living where you can see exactly how much I've been spending last year. So check it out. I'm going to put a link down below for you to watch it if you're interested. But I think there's an other question that people should ask, which is equally as important. And it's, how much will Spain take away from what I've already got? So I'm talking about your saving account. I'm talking about your retirement account, your house back home in the US, in the UK. You need to be aware that Spain they have a rule all around it. And when you become a Spanish resident, well, you do need to pay taxes on all of these assets. So this is something that I'm telling you, not to scare you, but I want you to be ready before you make decision on whether or not Spain is the right place for you. So for those of you who are new here, I'm Leticia from Coming to Spain. I've been living in Spain for about 8 years now. I'm based in Barcelona, and I help English-speaking expats or families, individuals move to Spain, provide you with the financial consideration you should have in mind, and help you with the whole process end-to-end of your relocation. And today we're going to tackle a topic which I think is critical. It's about not only the cost of living, but how much Spain will take away from you. So what we're going to do, it's going to be very practical, and I'm going to give you a specific example, and I'll break down how much you might be expected to be paying in Spain, depending on 4 different regions. Because again, disclaimer, if you're not aware, Spain has 17 different regions and you pay different taxes depending on the region that you decide to live in. So that's why it's really important. So I'm going to be breaking that down using a fictitious example. So for you to get a clear idea of the main consideration that you should have in mind. Big disclaimer, I am not a tax advisor. Actually, I work with lawyers, tax advisor, and I introduce you to them so that they can run a real simulation for you. So the numbers that I'm going to show you are ballparks. So if you want to get numbers that matches what you are current situation, you definitely want to talk to one of my tax advisors or one of my lawyers, one of my cross-border financial advisor. So I'll be putting a below. But enough about all of this. Let's now jump in. Okay, great. So let me show you the numbers. So I'm going to be showing you an example, a fictitious example of a person, let's call it Mark. He's American, he's 52 and planning to either retire early or work remotely. Okay, so this is something that I hear a lot. In his case, let's say that Mark earns around $8,000 a month from remote consulting, and that's roughly 88,000 euros a year. Now, we'll say that Mark has a home in the US that is worth $450,000 and a 401k worth $320,000. And he has about $80,000 sitting in the US brokerage account. So he's thinking about moving to Spain and he likes the idea of Valencia, right? So let's start with income tax. And we'll look at more than Andalusia. We'll look at more different regions so you can understand how taxes might differ depending on those most popular region. At least those are the ones that the majority of you guys are asking me about, right? So let's start with giving you a bit of an overview. So for those of you who don't know, Spain taxes income on a progressive scale. So that means that it can start from at 19% and it can go up to 47%. So again, another thing that people might not know is that Spain is divided into 17 regions. So each of these regions has its own additional tax rate on top of the national rate. So that's why it's really important to work out where you want to live and understand how, depending on the region where you're going to be based, you might pay. Yeah, look, your taxes might differ. So now, let's go back to Mark. So for Mark's income of 88,000 euros a year, let's look at Barcelona. Let's look at Catalonia. So that this is where I'm based, and it also happens to be one of the highest tax region in the country. So then, if, let's say that Mark decided to move to Catalonia, the effective total income tax in Catalonia would be 40.5%, right? So this is off of his 88K that he earns a year. So that would be an estimated annual income tax bill of around 640,000 a year. So this is what Mark would have to pay in Catalonia. Then we can look at the same scenarios across other popular regions. So if you look at, for example, Valencia, it's slightly lower. So it's 1 point lower, 39.5%. So in this case, he would pay 34,760 annual. This is estimated annual income tax a year. Then Andalusia and Madrid tend to be like lower. So in Andalusia, he would be looking at an income tax rate of 38.5%, and that would mean 33,880 euros a year in income tax. And then in Madrid, it would be 33K a year in income tax. So that gives you a bit of a sense of how the taxes might vary depending on different region. And actually, if you look at like the most expensive region in Spain, so that's Catalonia and Madrid. So we're talking about 2,600 euros a year difference just in income tax. So, and again, it's exact same income, exact same lifestyle, exact same person. So it's crazy. So hopefully that opens your eyes about how important it is to pick your region. And if you looked at over 5 years, for example, a 5-year period, that would be 13,000 euros a year. So, and this is only the first part, right? Because we haven't touched yet on wealth tax, which is also another really important factor that you need to consider. So, and I know it shocks a lot of people, but yes, Spain has a wealth tax, and it's called the Impuesto sobre el Patrimonio. So, what Spain does, it taxes its resident across all your worldwide net assets. So yes, there are some exemptions. So for example, you have like a personal allowance of 700,000 if you own a primary 700,000, and then if you own a primary residence in Spain, you can get an additional exemption of up to 300K on that. But again, if you're someone with modest assets, this does not apply. So let's go back to our example. Let's go back to Mark and see how much he would have to pay on wealth tax. So as a reminder, so Mark has 450. He has a 450K dollar house in the US. Then he has $320,000 in a 401k, and then he has $80,000 in a brokerage account. And let's say that he doesn't own any property in Spain and he's planning on renting. So now let's look at how wealth tax would vary depending on the different regions. Again, Catalonia, Valencia, Andalusia, and Madrid. Okay, so let's start with Catalonia. So in Catalonia, when we're looking at his what he would be taxable for, so it would be 75,000. So it would be 75,000 based on his existing assets. So that would be the equivalent of, again, roughly 562 euros a year that he would have to pay on top of his income tax that we discussed. Then let's take, for example, Madrid here. So in Madrid, because there's a 99% rebate on wealth tax, he will only have to pay 56 euros a year, right? Now in Andalusia, and this is why it gets really interesting. Let's say he wanted to move to Malaga or anywhere in Andalusia. There's actually no wealth tax, which is very interesting for many individual and companies. So this is something to bear in mind why Malaga is becoming an attractive place. And it means that he would have to pay nothing, zero, when it comes to wealth tax. And then in Valencia, we're looking at something similar to Catalonia. Well, it would be, to the same, similar to Barcelona, sorry. So it would be 562 euros a year. Okay, so again, same asset, same income, same person, but different cities and big differences in wealth tax. Now, let's combine everything together, right? So to see how, again, what would be the main differences if we add up income tax and wealth tax that we discussed. So I've added some color coding for you to kind of quickly see at a glance, but I think there's no surprise here that, well, Catalonia is one of the most expensive region to live. So in total, Mark would have to pay 36, let's round it up, 36K a year, and we're talking euros in total annual taxes. Whereas, for example, in Madrid, he would pay 33K roughly. So you can see there's a 3K difference between the highest and the lowest. And then in Valencia, you have it's 35K roughly, and then in Andalusia, 33K. So really, so if you assume that, Mark would stay in Spain for over 5 years, that's like a 15K difference. So that's a lot of money. So that money, you could use it for flights, you could use it for whatever you want. 1 year's worth of rent in many places in Spain. So it does compound, and it's a big deal. And that's why I always recommend that before you move to Spain, you speak to a tax advisor. I think it's all well and good to go on forums, on Facebook, on Instagram and whatnot, but you need this type of analysis to be run for you by a tax advisor that would look at your personal situation and that would give you numbers that would help you to make an informed decision. So I'll be putting a link below of Carlos. So that's the tax advisor that I've been working with. He specializes in working with American English speakers. So he's a great person to work with. So I strongly recommend it. Now, last but not least, let's look at the 401k. So about your pension and how to transfer that pension, because this is really important, and many people that I speak to are very concerned about that. So as a reminder, Mark has a 401k that is worth 320K. And he's been contributing to it his whole life. He's paid into it, and he's planning to draw it down to fund his retirement in Spain. So here's a big mistake that many people do. So many people, if they haven't spoken to a financial advisor, to a tax advisor, they will come to Spain, open a bank account, and they will start transferring money from their 401k every month, and they would use it at a living cost. But again, remember that if you're transferring money from your 401k to your Spanish bank account, the Spanish government is going to be considering this as an income. So this means that it will be taxed and it would be taxed at a pretty high rate. So you can look at between 37 to 40%. So let's say if you did a 40K transfer, which doesn't seem like a lot when looking at everything you've got in your 401k. I mean, we are looking at an estimated cost of between 12,000 and 60,000 that you could pay in taxes on that 40K. So it's really, really important to be very mindful and have a plan of action before. And this doesn't just apply to Americans. Now I'm talking about 401k, but if you're British and if you have a lesser pension pot, or if you're Australian and you have a super fund, well, the mechanism is different, but the risks are exactly the same. So really what you really want to do is work with a cross-border financial advisor. You want them to get involved before you're moving to Spain, ideally, so that they can help you put a strategy into place, and they can tell you how and when to access your fund overseas. So there's a lot of strategies that can be put into place. So I'll be putting a link below. Again, I'm working with an amazing cross-border financial advisor that's helped many of my clients. His name is Rob. I'll put, you can reach out to me. I can introduce you to him, or I'll put some information down below. And one more thing, there's a form, the 720, it's called Form 720. So, in case you haven't heard about it, this is for anyone who's tax resident in Spain. So, if you hold more than 50K outside of Spain, so for example, in a retirement account or from a house, etc. So, you're required by law to fill out this form to declare these assets. So, this is something that I wanted to add because it's really important. Now, enough of the practical bits. I hope I've not scared you off, because look, I've been in Spain for 8 years, like I said, and I'm not planning on going anywhere. And so these are just information for you to be prepared. Just making sure that when you're moving to Spain, you're making an informed decision, and then everything is set in motion properly. So everything I told you, it's fixable, right? So my personal recommendation is, number one, you definitely want to talk to a tax advisor. That's the first thing you want to do. Like I told you, I work with professional tax advisors who are very, very, very familiar with the cases that I've shared with you, or with any cases, other cases for that matter. So I usually recommend that you book a simulation so that you can they can run the numbers, and then you can see how how it would work out for you. Again, there's a link below for you to connect with my tax advisor, but you can also do your research. There's plenty out there on the market. And second, before you touch your retirement account, your 401k, anything, before you start making transfers, talk to a cross-border financial advisor. Like, it's critical. Of course, I've got mine. I always recommend it. It's in the link below, but it's for you. I think you need to do your due diligence. So those are the two things that I strongly recommend that you do before planning, before looking at visa, before looking at flats. I think this would help you. So now that's enough. I think I've loaded you with a lot of information. And if you found this video useful, I know it's typical from YouTube, but I've got to say it, just, share it, like it, or leave a comment. I mean, it's always helpful. And also it's really good for me just to understand if the type of content I'm sharing is helpful, right? So anyway, thank you for listening, and see you in the next one.